Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get started in just a minute. We'll give everyone a minute or so to hop on and get settled. But in the meantime, if you want to share in the chat where you're joining us from, I always think it's fun to see all the states and countries even people are joining from. So I can go ahead and go first. And if you want everyone to see it, make sure that you check everyone in the to part of the chat box. Upstate New York, West Virginia, California, Canada. Wow, all these, New Haven, Connecticut. Awesome, all these different time zones. We're so happy all of you could make time out of your busy schedules to join us. Nebraska, awesome. Well, as everyone is doing that, since we're at a minute after the hour, we have a lot of exciting content to cover. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So let me just share my screen with you all. Perfect, and I think that everyone should be able to see that. But hi everyone, my name is Lindsay Josephs and I'm a marketing specialist at OpenStax. Today, I'm joined by two amazing members of the XanEdu team, Beth Frenzy, Marketing Director, and Mike Kubiak, Product Manager. We'll hear from them in a little bit about who XanEdu is and about their affordable, flexible courseware solution called FlexEd, which sits on top of OpenStax discipline-specific digital OER content. And also joining us today is Dr. James C. Hyatt, a professor at the University of the Cumberlands, where he teaches in the Department of Computer Information Sciences. Dr. Hyatt has worked for different companies on IT security operations and management. He's also worked with other educational institutions in developing courseware and information systems management. Dr. Hyatt is an OpenStax Introduction to Business contributing author, and we'll hear from him shortly about his contributions to the text. To begin, we're just going to talk a little bit about who OpenStax is. Most of you are probably familiar with OpenStax, but if you're new to OpenStax, there's a few key things you'll want to know. So OpenStax is a nonprofit organization, and we're part of Rice University based in Houston, Texas. As a nonprofit, we rely on philanthropic support to maintain our operations, which includes donations from foundations, individuals, and mission support fees that we receive from our technology partners. So for instance, every time an instructor pairs one of our free textbooks with one of our low-cost technology options like XanEdu FlexEd, XanEdu FlexEd or that organization will give us a small mission support feedback that allows us to create new content and improve our existing content. As a nonprofit, we are mission-oriented, and our aim is to transform learning so that education works for every single student. Since 2012, we have published a library of over 45 free, openly licensed textbooks, in the process saving students over $1.7 billion. You just heard me say that OpenStax creates free, openly licensed textbooks, but what exactly does that mean? So OpenStax textbooks are an example of open educational resources, or OER. We have an excellent definition up here on the screen from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, which is a fantastic supporter of OER. And in essence, OER are teaching and learning materials that reside in the public domain, don't cost anything to access or use, and lack traditional copyright restrictions. So users such as students and instructors can edit and revise and redistribute the materials as they see fit. Here at OpenStax, we have a library of over 45 textbooks in business, math, the natural sciences, social sciences, humanities, and college success. Each of our textbooks align with the standard scope and sequence requirements of their respective courses and are written and reviewed by industry experts. In addition, each of our textbooks goes through a rigorous review and editorial process, and we regularly make errata and industry updates to ensure that our textbooks are up to date, representative of diverse student voices, and accurate. So for example, instructors such as yourselves may submit errata suggestions on our website, which our editorial team will look at. And we also make revisions to our textbooks when it's pedagogically necessary. So we may publish a new edition of a book if there's a big new revelations, some subject area, or we may just make small updates to each textbook a few times a year. Here at OpenStax, we offer a lot more than just textbooks. Each of our textbooks also comes with free instructor and student resources like LMS course shells, PowerPoint slides, and test banks. We also offer free webinars like this one and helpful articles on the OpenStax blog about tips for using our resources, for increasing classroom engagement using our tools, and for using our partner tools. We also offer our support center, which is a great resource to turn to if you have any questions, as well as OpenStax Tech Scout. So we know just how difficult and challenging and time-consuming it can be to find the right courseware and homework and technology tools for your course, which is why we decided to streamline this process through OpenStax Tech Scout. So essentially, you can visit OpenStax Tech Scout and use a searchable and filterable tool to find different courseware options that align with your class needs in the book that you're using. XanEdu is one of the amazing learning technology companies that you can find through Tech Scout. XanEdu offers low-cost, high-value options like XanEdu FlexEd that supports instructors and students. As an OpenStax ally, XanEdu helps to enrich the OpenStax experience and provides the financial support that OpenStax needs to keep our books current and accessible for all. Going off of that, I am now going to give the floor to our amazing team at XanEdu.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Lindsay. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen here. So a quick transition. All right. So just a little bit about XanEdu. We are a long-standing publishing company in the higher education space. We are also located in Michigan. We are the premier printer distribution and customization partner for OpenStax. And our mission, click to the next slide here. Our mission is to inspire the education community with innovative solutions to build affordable, accessible learning experiences that drive student success. At the end of the day, educators and XanEdu alike, we are here for the students as they prepare for a successful future. One way students can prepare for success is with XanEdu FlexEd. FlexEd is affordable, flexible, and effective courseware. Students will experience an engaging and easy-to-use OER course experience with information presented in a student-friendly format combined with video, text, and case studies. In fact, 82% of students prefer FlexEd to traditional options. For the instructor, FlexEd contains a wide range of OER course materials, students' performance tools, and activities that can be used to create your own courseware that matches your instructional delivery. Carefully curated videos illustrate key concepts and help students visualize and master the content. What's more is our team of experts at XanEdu can help you customize your course to simplify learning for your students and simplify course management for you. The flexible DIY interface makes it easy to personalize any content with a simple drag and drop. In a bit, you will receive a firsthand look from Mike Kubiak on how the discipline-specific OpenStax content is utilized through the FlexEd platform. But before we head there, let's take a step back to the beginning and hear from Dr. James C. Hyatt on his involvement in developing the Intro to Business text. Mike Kubiak will now take the reins and host this Q&A portion of the webinar.
Beautiful. Thanks, Beth. Let me pull up my screen. And as I'm doing that, we just want to, again, thank Dr. Hyatt for his time today. We heard from him earlier today that he had a daughter's high school graduation just earlier this week. So congratulations on that. And again, for joining us today and making time for this and for all of your great work as an author on the book. Let me pull up my screen. All right, wonderful. Well, Dr. Hyatt, as we dive in, we thought in a few minutes we'll go much deeper together on some specific content and chapters that you wrote and hear more about that content. But before we do that, we'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and your experience working on the textbook, as well as maybe any advice that you'd have for faculty listening in that may be interested in doing this kind of textbook writing themselves at some point, just based on your experiences. So please take it away.
All right. Thank you very much for having me be here and talk a little bit about this book and with OpenStax and my experiences that I've had. I want you to know, first of all, let me give you a little bit of context when it comes to me. I do have fairly extensive experience when it comes to IT security, that aspect, as well as operations management. In fact, I own Hyatt Analytics, which is a company that consults, and the demand is very high right now with our society and culture. But when I have also spent time internationally and been recognized by several countries as a world content expert. So when I had this opportunity, when I saw OpenStax, quite frankly, I had no idea what it was. But I like research.
Right.
So I looked it up and wow, I was impressed. It was at Rice University, and my parents actually are retired professors, and they said, "Oh yeah, we know that. That is a really good, Rice University. We have a friend out there. It is great. Take a look at it." And so I took a look at the design, what they had. And ironically enough, I had been serving, I've worked with the Higher Learning Commission, HLC, as well as WASC, with determining what needs to be taught in business. This is always a question, what areas? And of course, we had gone through and decided, man, there are certain characteristics and certain areas that need to at least be introduced as an introductory portion to the content. When I looked at the textbook and the platform it was laid out, it met every single criteria. The Higher Learning Commission, and I was serving with them at the time, meshing this out, every single element, which made it much easier when teaching an introduction to business class. The information was there. And so it was a great experience, because one thing that I personally enjoyed as I wrote, participated in OpenStax, is freedom and the opportunity to share experiences. It does very little good to just simply provide information without context and without being able to share the experiences and tie them together. And so OpenStax gave that opportunity. I've worked with other book publishing companies. It has been quite a challenge when it comes to timeline, deadlines, content, different aspects. But working with OpenStax, for anybody that is interested to go and publish work with books, I would highly suggest working most certainly with OpenStax. But I don't know if I answered your question.
You sure did. No, you absolutely did. Thanks, Dr. Hyatt.
Yeah.
What you just mentioned there on flexibility, that it sounds like such a testament to both the way OpenStax works and its the quality of its authorship, just like you as an author, and the review process and the peer review process that the books go through. And still maintaining that flexibility amidst such a rigorous process. In a lot of ways, it feels like that's the model for how we approach, developing OER content and high quality OER content. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on your experiences and also those tips for others. That's tremendous. The next question we have for you is a nice segue you just made for us, was given your expertise, both your research and teaching expertise, as well as your expertise in the business world, as you mentioned, we'd love to hear a few examples of some of the chapters that you worked on and how you went about, as you just touched on, identifying which content would be most critical for students to learn from, and examples that you chose to include to achieve that balance of of concepts and real world examples.
Right. As I'm sure we're all aware, business is a very broad topic with many different facets. And so I had the opportunity in the two chapters I particularly focused on and wrote was, I believe it's chapter 10 and 13. The first one is on operations management. With operations management, I was able to integrate different aspects, and I even commented about the international aspect of operations management. It's difficult. We definitely have difficulties nowadays, but even before the onset of the well-known COVID-19 pandemic, there were difficulties. You had to make sure that supply was available at the location so that it met the needed demand. Now, there were different methods. One element, though, that I was able to focus on, spend a little at the end of that chapter, was about the international aspect. In fact, some of the references there are related to some Asian countries and getting the product to the locations for facilitation, and the locations of having a factory or a facility next to and close to the supply for supply demand. But there are also other facets of that. And so I was able to include some of the visualizations. Now, visualizations are fundamental. We need to be able to visualize and see the way things work. If I were simply to say to you, I want you to imagine a horse, one person may think of a pony, one may think of a black stallion, one may think of another type of a horse. Providing and being able to provide the visualization, showing the content from a visual perspective, we can then illustrate and convey the messages in which we are trying to convey in the context being provided. And so in operations management, in that chapter 10, I was able to do that. And it was really great to also use different processes, tie those things in that are real challenges, real issues. Also, I believe it is chapter 13. Actually, I'm sure it's chapter 13. It's about information systems management. You know what? We live in a technological world. Right now, we're together, but we are very apart due to technology. Information systems management integrate with operations management as well. And as I looked at this textbook and the way it was written, man, the way it was platformed for the chapters, those two principles, as do many principles, interrelate. Looking at information systems management, we must realize, and in this textbook, discussing information systems management from a security perspective, from an international perspective, from a supply chain, and from a logistics perspective. And these things can be tied in. And they aren't just simply examples that you pull out of a hat, but some of these particular examples, they're referenced from others, and some are from my own personal examples and illustrations, which has allowed me to also share that information and has been beneficial. I've spoken with a couple professors, a couple professors that actually do use this textbook. One thing that they really like, cost. When I was in graduate school, the most expensive book I bought was $500.
Yeah.
It was a brand new book. They did not have, sorry about that. They did not have any used copies because it was new. I still own that book. I don't, it's on my shelf. I have
Can't
it
get rid of it.
because
No
I
way.
could not, because of the expense. The thing I really enjoy, information is available through OpenStax. And I love the premise, the ideology, and also the purpose and goals of OpenStax. And so really that's why I pursued writing those chapters. Otherwise, there were other publications that I was working on at the time, but I put those on hold for a little bit so that I could do this.
Thanks, Dr. Hyatt. That's now that point about the $500 textbook is so powerful. And we had hosted another webinar recently with one of our OER nursing platforms and textbooks, and a similar comparison was made. So you're exactly right that particularly in some of these fields like business, those prices are skyrocketing, and to have both free and low cost options like these is incredibly beneficial for students. You also touched on earlier the really valuable point about the visuals and visualization, and how important that is for all students given a range of learning styles, and particularly for some of these business topics. So wanted to thank you too for bringing up that point, and the way you think about accessibility and as well as affordability. Is there anything else as you think about your own experience? That example was so powerful, but as you think about your students today or your colleagues' students, and that feedback about cost, anything else as that jumps out to you around this kind of this connection of high quality materials being both affordable and accessible?
Well, one thing, the two colleagues that when I spoke to them last, they really enjoy it because it does give a broad perspective. And business, there's so many venues, so many different directions and areas that we can go. The business field itself is not the same today as it's going to be 10 years from now. And so I know from the two colleagues that I have that have been using this textbook have enjoyed it and do like how it can give a broad perspective, because from a basic business perspective, we need to be able to have a broad foundation to build our knowledge and education on. If we do not have that, we will have gaps within our learning. Those gaps in learning make it very difficult. I remember, I was taking, this is way back, college. I took, of course, my English classes, and we were using MLA, and I went to this other class, and they said, okay, you need to write an APA. Okay, say what? I went to the library and I looked it up and I figured it out. I did not have the necessary foundation. And that's why when we look at business, and I am not trying to sell this as an advocate, other than the fact that I do believe that there's significant value in the way this is set up, the knowledge, the tools that are available for student learning, because everybody has different learning styles. But I will say you have to have at least the knowledge of the breadth. And that's what is shown and available in the OpenStax, the business, the Introduction to Business book.
Now, thanks, Dr. Hyatt. That's so well put. The importance of the breadth of content, and thinking about some of the examples like the international perspective that you mentioned in your chapter. One thing that I think we've noticed at XanEdu in our partnership with OpenStax is the inclusion of that international perspective. For example, these textbooks, including Intro to Business, are really ahead of the curve on thinking about that kind of content, and that global content, and the way that you incorporated that in your chapters is so valuable in the commitment that OpenStax has to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think seeing how that takes shape in the way that authors like yourself both select and write that content. So thanks for sharing that. You touched on this, as you in your last remarks, but as we think about the importance of a high quality textbook like this one that you helped to author, with that breadth of content, just as you shared. You mentioned too that there's we know that the textbook is as great as it is, it can't always include everything an instructor might need for a successful course. And Lindsay shared a few of the examples earlier of the types of ancillary materials OpenStax creates so well, and Beth shared the FlexEd content, and we'll look at some more of that in a moment as well. But as we transition, we'd love to hear any more thoughts from you, from your own experience, from some of the colleagues that you just mentioned, around what additional materials, resources, tools. You touched on technology, given your vast expertise in that area. What kinds of tools do you feel like help make the textbook come alive even more, or help again around that student engagement and student learning? We'd love to hear a few more thoughts from you on that as we transition.
The tools that are available, and this is available in many textbooks that have moved this direction, but the engagement, being able to participate in the learning process. I'll tell you what, you go out to the real world right now, Hyatt Analytics, my company, is working with colleagues from India, China, England, Pakistan. We're working together, looking at multiple factor analytics, getting supply and having backups from a basic perception. So students need to realize and gain the expertise. And so with the simulation, the tools available in the book, it helps them to make a connection instead of just simply reading a book and saying, wow, wonderful idea. No. Out in the real world, it's not just simply read a book, take a test. It's application. And so utilizing the tools that are available, looking at it from different perspectives and approaching it from different perspectives adds and enriches our knowledge and helps students recognize and realize that, wow, we do not live in our little bubble, but we live in a global society. I work, like I said, with my company alone, and also with different publications and things I've done internationally. I've done so with international colleagues. Yes, sometimes it was at midnight, my time,
right,
but not theirs. But we need to be able to take this and realize that this is not just simply you take a test about a certain date and you check a box, but we actually are able to learn how to apply this information, because gaining this information is fundamental, but application of information is necessary for success in all walks of life. So that's one thing I do really enjoy about the textbook, the tools that are available that you can use as well. And it definitely serves as an effective solution financially, over and above many, many other textbooks.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Hyatt. We wanted to thank you again for all of the work that you put into the textbook and the excellent chapters you wrote, your time today. I'm sure we'll come back in the Q&A portion shortly with questions for you from our participants today. But you definitely provided us the perfect segue with your response there to allow us to share a little bit more about the FlexEd courseware that Beth and Lindsay touched on already, and that it incorporates several of the items that you had just mentioned around tools for student engagement and collaboration and many of those things. So thank you again, Dr. Hyatt. That was tremendous insights. And again, just I think a reminder to all of us of the caliber and quality of the OpenStax authors like yourself and your expertise as faculty and the expertise and lens that you bring as a business owner in your case and that global perspective as well. So thank you so much for all of those insights. And we're gonna reference several of those as we go through and give the group a brief demo of the FlexEd platform. And the other reason I mentioned Dr. Hyatt providing our perfect segue is we at XanEdu, we just recently conducted a set of interviews and reviews of the FlexEd courseware platform with a group of Introduction to Business instructors, including some department chairs and course coordinators as well. But all of them have taught the course, are teaching it currently, or have taught it this year and plan to continue to teach it. And we wanted to share with you just a quick snapshot. I know all of you as business faculty love data, just as Dr. Hyatt shared. So we wanted to share a quick visual with you in honor of what Dr. Hyatt just said, and to give you a quick sense of what some of your faculty colleagues have found as the leading strengths of the FlexEd courseware. And a few of those are, again, directly tied to what Dr. Hyatt just shared. Number one being, and we'll look at this in a moment, but all of the FlexEd content includes curated videos that align with the AHEADs in the textbook. So students are getting a curated set of videos that are short and engaging and really lead them into the text. And so, as we all know, how students are increasingly learning through those kinds of media, to have that kind of curated content really jumped out as a strength. And then secondly, just as Dr. Hyatt shared, that it's quite affordable. The FlexEd courseware, and we'll touch more on this in a few minutes, but it's $35 for students. So that includes, that's the full all-in cost for students, and that meets the low cost designation at schools that are moving in that direction of zero cost and low cost course materials. So that's really important to us at XanEdu, that all of the products that we create are low cost for students. And then I think what's interesting to me is you see kind of this long tail of strengths that some other instructors identified. And to us, it really reinforces that theme, as Dr. Hyatt mentioned, of flexibility, and that there are a range of strengths in the textbook and the FlexEd courseware. And that each instructor might be looking for slightly different things to meet the needs of their course design and course goals. So, for example, the idea of saving prep time. We know how busy many of you are right now, and how many courses you're teaching, and that the idea of a courseware platform being able to do some of that work that you may otherwise have to do on your own. and that you can trust the quality of it is really important, as you see in some cases here. So we wanted to share with you that quick snapshot so you could all kind of think for yourself as well, which of these features or strengths feel most important to you and may solve any pain points that you have as you're thinking about your planning for this summer or fall semester. And so with that, I am going to jump over to the FlexEd platform. And while I do that, Beth or Lindsay, if there's anything else that jumped out in the chat that we might want to cover now, please feel free to jump in. I know we'll have a lot of time for questions in a few minutes once the demo's done.
Nope, I think there was one question from Sean, but it looks like Lindsay addressed it in the chat regarding authoring OER content.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay. That's great. So what we wanted to show you here was the FlexEd Introduction to Business courseware. And this is what we call the course homepage. There's a few really simple ways to get into the course. What we found to be the most popular is directly from your school's LMS. So FlexEd integrates with all of the leading LMS platforms, including Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, D2L, and others. And so if you were to link from your LMS course, you would come right into this homepage. This is the instructor view, but the student view looks quite similar as well. And I think a few things to say there. We've tried our best to make the interface quite simple and user-friendly. So you'll see a large font, easy to navigate, aligns fully with the textbook. So as we scroll down here, you'll see all 17 of the chapters, just like the table of contents from the textbook. And then at the very bottom, a quick section for documents and downloads where you could access things like the full textbook or study guides and other materials as PDFs. So everything is in that order. A few other things to note right off the top. The courseware is, just as we mentioned, designed to be complete and have everything you might need. But to that point of flexibility, it is also fully customizable and easy to edit. So a couple quick examples. One would be if you didn't in your course cover all 17 chapters and there were a few that you did not want to cover, you can easily move those into, I'll do it as we're talking here. I just need to move my Zoom screen. You'll see right here, there's an instructor view. If you were to click on that, you'll see there's the student view option. In the instructor view, you'll always see answers to assessment items, for example. And then there's this authoring mode. And if you were to click into the authoring mode, you'll notice everything becomes easy to edit and adjust. If you wanted to hide any of the chapters, you could just move them into draft mode. And those would then be grayed out, meaning that you'll still see it here and have easy access to it as the instructor. But if we were to flip back over to the student mode, they would no longer see that content. Similarly, you can easily rearrange if you wanted to totally follow your syllabus rather than having the chapter order. You can do that. We have many instructors that rather than having just the chapter listed here, they might also include the day or week that they're covering that content in their course. And again, here you can just highlight that content and change the text to whatever you would like. These are also the kinds of things that our XanEdu team can assist you with. So we're showing you all of this, and so you know that you can do it yourself as the instructor or coordinator, but our team can also make these edits, particularly for teaching multiple sections. We don't want you to have to go through and do all of that setup work yourself. That's what our team is here to assist with as well. So those are a couple key features: easy to edit, easy to reorder. We know that several of you on the call today, in addition to teaching Introduction to Business, you also teach other business courses. You may also be using some content from other OpenStax textbooks. We have a few Introduction to Business professors right now that are using the FlexEd platform that like to include, for example, a chapter from the OpenStax Business Law textbook. So that would be one example that our team can help you easily pull that content into your FlexEd course here. Similarly for any of the other OpenStax content, just as Lindsay shared earlier, the beauty of the way OpenStax has designed it is it's very easy to do that, and in most of those cases we have ancillary content we can build in as well. So I wanted to show you just a quick run through of some of the key content that you'll find as we go through this. And as I do, we're going through it quick here today. Our team at XanEdu would love the chance to go through this in greater detail with you individually or with your department at your convenience to go through this and give you a chance to answer more questions. And then we can also set you up with your own instructor account as well, so you can go through it at your own pace and really dive in. So I'm going to go back to the instructor view, and the nice thing about FlexEd as well is every chapter follows a consistent format. So if we were to jump into as we go down here, we'll jump into the operations management, since Dr. Hyatt so wonderfully shared examples of that earlier. I mentioned before there's an introductory section at the top of each chapter that has a quick introduction. And then as you move through, as we talked about before, there's a video that covers one of the key concepts aligned with each of the A heads or sections of the chapter. Again, these line up fully with the textbook content, and so there's a video for each of those as we navigate through. And there's a couple different ways. You'll see these up here. We call these breadcrumbs, just to give you a sense of where you're at in any given chapter. You can use those to click through, or on the left and right, you'll see arrows that allow you to move through and tell you what's coming next. So again, here a video for each section with some introductory text. This, as we talked about before, we found this to be one of the most beneficial features of the courseware, that it allows students to watch these videos. They're embedded here, so students aren't going out to YouTube, for instance, and looking for this content on their own. Similarly, if you have any videos that you've identified that you would prefer to use in place of the videos that our subject matter experts have curated, those can easily be swapped in place or in addition to.
Hey, Mike, there was a question in the chat that might be appropriate to address here. And that question is, what specifically do you mean by curated videos? Could you go a little deeper into that?
Oh, that's perfect, Beth. Thank you. That's a great question. So what we mean by that is we are the subject matter experts that develop our FlexEd content. In some cases, they're authors that have worked on the OpenStax textbooks. In other cases, they're faculty like yourselves that are using the OpenStax textbook in their courses and have expertise in authoring. They write these introductory sections of text, and then they identify videos. In most cases, they're openly accessible videos on YouTube that cover key concepts well. So when we say curated, we mean selected and curated by the subject matter expert faculty that have developed the course. So that's what we mean there. Thank you for that excellent question.
And they're closed captioned.
Also a great
well,
question
right?
about captioning. They are all designed to be closed captioned. FlexEd is meets all of the accessibility standards. The technical term is WCAG 2.0, so that includes closed captioning and other accessibility features. And then these are, as I mentioned before, because they're embedded, you don't see pop-up ads or other things that you might if you went out to YouTube otherwise. So those are a few of the advantages. And then, but again, the videos have proven to be a very popular feature in Introduction to Business specifically. I think as Dr. Hyatt mentioned, given the breadth of the content, as well as many of our other FlexEd courses as well that are built on OpenStax. So, so several of these again align with each of the sections in the chapter. So you can always count on having one video for each of the sections and key items. So those are that in, especially given the number of sections in these chapters, you'll notice as we're moving through the breadcrumbs here, roughly about half of the content is in each chapter. We'll have this format of video and summary text. And then we also put in the full chapter as a PDF. So if you did want your students to review everything in full or point them to specific items or sections, that's available here as a PDF as well. To the accessibility point, we also know that for some students, you know, if internet stability or Wi-Fi connections might be challenging, then they can download the book and always have it, as Lindsay mentioned earlier as well. So they can have access to it, you know, on their computer and on their phone or wherever they would like. FlexEd is fully compatible with all browsers. I just mentioned phones. We're seeing an increasing number of students doing a lot of their schoolwork on phones, as you all know, and FlexEd is also optimized for mobile phones as well, and resizes accordingly in that way. And then after all of that, we for FlexEd, we refer to it as learn, practice, assess as the overarching pedagogy for the platform. And so what we mean by that is, just as we looked through together here, the content is designed to be engaging with the videos and the links to an alignment with the readings. And then after that, students begin to have a lot of opportunities for practice and an application of the content. So in every chapter, there's a practice section that includes things like flashcards and practice quiz content that allows students to check their answer. We're in the instructor view here, so that's why the answer was showing up. But in the student view, they would see they wouldn't see the answer, but they would have an option to check the answer after they made their selection. So that kind of auto-graded content that gives them real-time feedback, and then all of that content powers what we call the study center up above, which gives all of this material is aligned to the student learning objectives from the textbook. And so as students are going through these kinds of practice activities and other assessments, anything they're struggling with will get moved into their study center, so they can then review that content and practice it further until they master it. So designed to be you know, both engaging and give students that self-sufficiency as well. Great question, Timothy. Yes, absolutely. In the same way we looked before at the range of editing features for all of the content. This is another great example where if you wanted to remove hints, remove the ability to check answers and use these more as you know, traditional assessments, all those changes can be made again, either directly on your end, or that's the kind of work that XanEdu can assist with to do that course-wide for you. And then just a couple other quick examples. Speaking of assessments, every chapter has a set of discussion questions, usually again with a video linked to it to help set the stage for that discussion, aligned to a key concept from the chapter. And then what we refer to as homework here, these are designed to be open response questions. So this would be the one of the sets of questions that instructors would, you as instructors would auto grade. And so if you didn't want that, if you wanted everything to be auto-graded rather than self-graded, we could adjust these or remove them, again, completely in your control. And then the other thing we wanted to highlight really quickly was, I'm going to jump back out for a moment, and we've already seen a few different examples of what those assessment types look like. I mentioned earlier, the idea of giving you a range of options to choose from. The authors, what we did was, again, we wanted to give a full range. So just as Dr. Hyatt mentioned, thinking about what types of assessments would be most useful for you and your students. You'll see here, there's a range of them included. We have a set of scenario-based questions around ethical issues or dilemmas, critical thinking that feel more like case study questions. And then some workplace-based questions, and working the net, which takes students, encourages them to go on the internet and research specific companies and do some written work or present back to you. So you'll see that a couple of them are in draft mode because we recognize that you can't necessarily use all of these. We want you to be able to pick and choose, and we included some of them as the default, but all of these are there for you to choose from. So you have a range of assessment items to work with to meet your needs, and for both formative and summative assessments. Every chapter, speaking of assessments, every chapter has an auto-graded assessment that has 25 questions and can be randomized, so students are seeing different questions than their classmates, and again, with the idea of covering the content in full from the chapter, but not putting you in a position where you have to grade all of that yourself. So those have been a couple of features that we found to be really valuable. XanEdu also refreshes the assessment content annually, so you can count on that for the kinds of updates we discussed around content with Dr. Hyatt, as well as for academic integrity issues. So if you're using these for chapter exams, midterms, finals, you know that this content's not going to find its way to Chegg or wherever that it's current and set up in that way. Thank you for the question around LMS integration. Yes, for both Canvas and Blackboard, there's gradebook syncing for all of the assessment items. If your LMS is, if you use a different LMS, we can also work with you to support an export process that would get the grades easily into your LMS platform. And then just a couple of other quick notes. Instructor slides. These are the slides that OpenStax created. As Lindsay had touched on earlier, they can be edited if you would like, and those are accessible there. If you have other slides that you've used in addition, those can be put in here in place of the standard OpenStax slides as one example. And then I wanted to touch on one last thing, and then we'll open it up for some questions. We found this Insights tab to be a really powerful piece for instructors. So in addition to the gradebook content, this dashboard gives you a sense of, we populated it with some sample student data here, but you get a couple really powerful learning gauges around not just student mastery and scores, but how engaged they are in the platform and where they're spending time. And, if they're spending their time, but just struggling to score well, that's a really important, data point for you as the instructor. So we try to make sure this is really user-friendly data for you. We know that as business instructors, you love actionable data. So that's our goal, to provide that here through this kind of insights dashboard. And then the last thing I'd mention is at XanEdu, we pride ourselves on customer support and service. And you'll notice up here, there's a help button. Students and instructors can click on that to get real-time live support from one of our customer support staff. If it's late at night, you can always count on a reply first thing in the morning. And as I mentioned already, for things like initial course setup and design, our XanEdu team is available to do Zooms with you, to do a lot of that work together collaboratively to take it off of your plate. So we are always available. And so those were a couple highlights. I had one last thing I wanted to just share with you, and I think you saw it in the when we were in the preview mode. We also included a set of case studies from leading companies like Warby Parker and others that are available for you here. They include questions as well, so you can cover those. however you would like. They're designed to be, you can use them as in full if you would like to use them as homework or graded assignments. You'll see the case study here. To Dr. Hyatt's point earlier, there's always visuals and some data to analyze, but it's really user friendly. It's set up as an assignment, but if you'd prefer to use it instead as in-class discussion, we can change this. So these are just set up to be discussion questions rather than fill in the blank boxes. So that was just one other example of the kinds of content that you would have access to if case studies are important to your way of teaching. So I'm going to stop there, and we'd love to open it up to any final questions.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for providing us with a peek inside the FlexEd courseware. As you mentioned, we're going to transition to questions, and I'm going to ask Lindsay to help us address any questions in the chat that we have yet to address or in the Q&A. If you could help us point those out, our team, as well as Dr. Steve Hyatt is here as well to address your questions.
Of course. So we have a lot of questions in the chat. So I'm going to pick questions that most likely apply to everyone. But so we have a few questions about FlexEd being available for a wide range of other books. Do you want to elaborate on that a little more?
Oh, thank you, Lindsay. Yes, absolutely. So particularly in business, we do have FlexEd for other courses. We have Principles of Management built out already, as well as Introduction to Business. We can also do some custom design work at XanEdu. So as a couple quick examples, we're doing some work this summer for instructors that are using organizational behavior and entrepreneurship OpenStax textbooks. And so we'll have those available as well. And then the Principles of Marketing book is being published by OpenStax later this fall, and we'll have FlexEd courseware coinciding with the release of the book in the fall. So all of those are available.
Wonderful, thank you. And we also have a couple questions about accessibility and pricing. So would you like to elaborate a bit more on the accessibility features that XanEdu FlexEd offers for students with disabilities?
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, accessibility is very important to us at XanEdu in our FlexEd platform. I mentioned earlier that that there is closed captioning. It allows for screen reader for the text, and we are always committed to having the latest accessibility standards met and surpassed, and whenever possible. We have some additional documentation that we can share on that. Thank you for the question. And if we can do a follow-up demo, we can share some more specific examples with anyone interested to see what those accessibility options look like in action.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike, for sharing that. And the next question in regards to pricing. So could you please elaborate a bit more on how pricing works for FlexEd courseware, and how, I guess, like, do you partner with institutions to help with pricing or the cost of things? How does that work?
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for the question. Our goal is to ensure that FlexEd is low cost, and I mentioned earlier the standard pricing is a student price of $35. If that's direct on FlexEd through the website, and students always have a 14-day trial period, so you can ensure that students have access to FlexEd on the first day of class if they're waiting for financial aid to come in or need a little bit more time to make that payment. You can count on them having that access. Similarly, if it's through the bookstore, we offer discounted pricing to the bookstore so that the retail price can be that $35 price. So if students, however they want to purchase it, that would be the pricing. If you have, for example, a commitment to make materials zero cost for students. We have some partners and some school partners that will pay for FlexEd through their department, so that it's free for students. And we'd love to explore things like that with you as well around any sort of institutional pricing or discounts that might fit there. So thank you for those questions.
No, thank you for answering all of them. We just hit the 3 p.m. Eastern mark. So Beth.
Yeah, so thank you. Thanks, Lindsay, for some final words here. Thank you to our wonderful panelists, Dr. James C. Hyatt, for spending time out of your busy day to spend time with us, OpenStax and with XanEdu. We hope this session was helpful and informative. To learn more about OpenStax, an introduction to business, you can visit openstax.org. And to learn more about XanEdu FlexEd courseware, you can visit xanedu.com/FlexEd. If we did not get to your questions, members from the XanEdu team or the OpenStax team will be following up. And thank you for joining us today. Have a great afternoon.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.